Good day. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Today's 5-minute book review is going to be on The Federal Siege at Ruby Ridge by Randy Weaver. Now, we'll jump straight into it. Real quick background. Randy Weaver, by some, basically is considered a white supremacist. By others, he's considered a freedom fighter, a person who is standing up to a large and intrusive government. Now, here's the backstory. Randy, in the late 80s, was pressed for money, and he started to associate himself with people who maybe are a little bit rough around the edges, unsavory. So he went and sold some weapons, a couple sawed-off shotguns, I believe is what they cited, to a white supremacist group. Now, does that make him a white supremacist? Not really, but it is a little shady that you're making deals and cutting deals with people who have radical ideas like that. However, that's a moral doctrine, and you really cannot prosecute somebody for simple beliefs. And it has never even been proven that he's a white supremacist. But regardless of the fact, he sold some guns to an informant who was on the inside of that, and the government caught up to him and cited him to bring him to court over these charges of illegal gun sales. Now, long story short, he missed his court date. He says there's legitimate reasons. They were given the wrong court date, and he says he has proper documentation. Whatever the case may be, he misses the court date. And the government heads out to his little sort of cabin retreat, which was in Idaho, Ruby Ridge. And they surrounded his it's not even a complex. They surrounded his house. It's a very rural area, and they surrounded his house, and they were doing surveillance on him. And one day, him and his close family friend, a man by the name of Eric Harris. Ironically, Eric Harris was also the name of one of the shooters from Columbine. His son, Randy Weaver's son, his friend Eric Harris, and their dog go out to hunt because, like I said, they were rural area. So as they're out surveilling their property for a potential hunt, their dog goes and finds one of the federal agents that is sort of camped out and doing surveillance. So they shoot the dog, and then they get into a firefight. Randy Weaver says that in the firefight they never declared themselves to be police or federal officers, so he didn't know who he was fighting and shooting back at. There were shots exchanged. Within the melee, there was one federal agent killed, and in addition, Randy Weaver's son was shot in the arm. His arm was basically blown off. His son would later die. I think the autopsy said he was shot in the back. This is very interesting because this is a child. And the dog was killed. So then after that, Randy Weaver and his friend retreat back to the house. At this point in Randy's frame of mind, he has no idea who he's fighting. He thinks that people are trying to attack him, so he goes into his house. Now there's a siege. Eventually he finds out that the government is the one who's basically launched an attack on him, as he saw it. And within the siege, his friend Eric is shot and killed also. And tragically, his wife, who was holding their infant, was seen through a window or the doorway holding the infant, and she was shot by a federal agent sniper, a man by the name of Lon Haruchi, and she was killed, basically holding an infant. Now, this is the federal government here we're talking about. So it looks egregious on face value, and this is his account of the story. And eventually, the siege would come to an end. Randy Weaver was a Green Beret, and what they did was they brought in Randy Weaver's commanding officer, a very decorated guy, to negotiate an agreement for him to come out. And eventually an agreement was met, and they came out. Now, that's the story. This happened in the early 90s. Very interesting story. Very tragic in a way. I mean, there's no way I think any government in the right mind should be shooting a woman who's holding an infant unless they felt like that infant was in grave danger of being killed. But I don't think that was the case. Regardless of it, it's a very interesting story. Once again, it's called The Federal Siege at Ruby Ridge. It's by Randy Weaver. Randy's still alive, and he has 3 daughters that are also still alive. So something very interesting to look at if you're into this sort of thing. So I think if I'll just pose one little philosophical question here. We're coming in an age in the early 90s where there's this whole new world order sort of idea, and that government had a new responsibility. And you know, the question was he dangerous enough to go and siege his house like this, and basically, for lack of better ways of really explaining it, launching a preemptive attack on him? Or, was he that dangerous, or was this, as Randy Weaver thought, an encroachment on his rights and his way of life, and this was an egregious act? If you want to weigh in, I'll leave the comment section below, alright? But here we go, once again, The Federal Siege at Ruby Ridge, Randy Weaver. Interesting book, and if you want to give your opinion, be more than happy, okay? Leave it in the comment section, and remember, read up, read up. Alright, see you later.